In the new 1.6 update, Mihailo buffed the damage of transformative reactions, that is Overload, Shatter, Electrocharge, Swirl, and Superconduct, and also Crystallize, but that doesn't do damage, so we won't count it here. 3 out of these 5 reactions can be triggered by Electro, so these buffs are seen as a move to raise the Electro element out of the mud and have it compete with the other elements that can trigger Melt or Vaporize, both of which are currently in the endgame meta. So let's take a super quick look at some of the data pre and post buff to get a shallow feel of how the buffs will or will not affect the meta. Specifically, the 1.6 buffs increase the damage of transformative reactions triggered by characters above level 60. Furthermore, the buffs increase the damage bonus caused by Elemental Mastery. First, we'll look at the Overload reaction. I have Klee here dripping with a cool 621 Elemental Mastery. Note that the transformative reactions don't depend on attack and cannot crit, so all the stats other than EM and level of the character doesn't really matter. I'm using a 4-piece Thundering Fury, which increases the overload damage by 40%. I tried getting the EM main stat on all the pieces, but Mihailo just doesn't let anyone have nice things. So I have 1 attack Hourglass and EM Cup and Circlet. If I had an EM Hourglass instead of attack, I would have done about 16% more damage, although this doesn't really matter since I used the same artifact set for the pre-buff test as the post-buff test. The test is done on the Electro Cube, so I can proc Overload as much as possible in the same ultimate period. Note that for the pre-buffs run, we start at about half health. It is very apparent that post buffs we do almost double the damage as pre-buffs. It's more apparent if I just compare the damage of an overload reaction. Pre-buffs we get about 5,900 damage, and post buffs we get about 10,100 damage. That's a 71% increase. So not quite double, but it's a very noticeable difference. So does this mean that Electro will finally be at the top? Will Keqing take her rightful throne as the strongest character in the game? I think it's still a bit too early to tell, but if you want my unprofessional opinion, I think Electro reactions still won't dominate the endgame meta. However, niche team comps will start popping up that will be able to utilize these buffs just as a way to say, oh yeah, this is possible. But did you notice how I said Electro reactions instead of transformative reactions? Yes, that's not a mistake. There are 2 transformative reactions that are not triggered by Electro. Shattered aside, Swirl can definitely benefit from buffs like this, especially since many of Swirl characters are already built for Elemental Mastery. In this way, the buffs are just free damage increases. For the second test, we will see how a double Swirl team performs pre and post buffs. Swirler number 1 is our dearest Sucrose, coming in with an 809 EM and a 4-piece very distant Vanner, which increases Swirl damage by a whopping 60%. She can also give EM to teammates, which further extends the benefit from the buffs. Second up is our very own washing machine Venti, coming in with only 495 EM and a 2-piece Furdis and Vanner. Apologies to our boy, but resin is a bit tight lately, so I don't have that many EM and VV pieces on hand. Nonetheless, our team performed admirably in the domain. Post buffs, we were able to clear the domain in 60% of the time it took pre-buffs. We can also look at the specific Swirl damage pre and post buffs. For Sucrose, pre-buff is about 2,700, post-buff is about 4,800, a 77% increase in damage. For Venti, pre-buff is about 1,800 and post-buff is about 2,900, a 63% increase. Since the buffs increase the damage bonus from EM, it makes sense that higher EM characters will have a higher damage increase. So after seeing that, now do you know who the real winners of these buffs are? Yes, it's not Electro, but Anemo characters that were already built for Elemental Mastery. More specifically, Sucrose is the biggest winner. Since she is able to send EM to everyone in the party, the more she wins, the more everyone wins. Therefore, don't start building EM Electro, and keep on dumping EM into her dearest. Other than that, I'll see you next time.